The Debaters is created by Richard Side. This week's episode was produced by Josh Bailey, Graham Clark, Chloe Edbrook, and Nicole Callender, with continuity by Graham Clark, Diana Francis, and Gary Jones. Technical production by Pat Martin and Larry Walker. Story editing by Gary Jones. With special thanks to Katie Ellen Humphreys and David Pride. Executive producer of CBC Radio Comedy is Lee Pitts. And thanks to everyone at the Neptune Theatre in Halifax.
This is CBC Radio 1, 990 AM, 89.3 FM in Winnipeg. Ovarian cancer is one of the deadliest cancers affecting women. OBGYN professor Jillian Hanley says a simple surgical procedure has the potential to save many lives.
We're really excited about the preliminary results on the effectiveness of opportunistic self-injectomy as an ovarian cancer prevention approach.
Defeating ovarian cancer on White Coat Black Art with Dr. Brian Goldman. Tomorrow afternoon at 1:30, 2 in Newfoundland, and on CBC Listen.
You know the feeling of finding a
This is CBC News. At 12 o'clock, we're at 18 degrees with partly cloudy skies over downtown Winnipeg. Good afternoon. I'm Matt Humphrey. The union for the Manitoba hydro worker killed on the job this week is mourning his loss, but also raising concerns about working conditions. Hydro says the employee was responding to an outage in the Inner Lake when he died. Michael Espinel is the business manager for the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 2034.
We believe he was working alone, and we've had a concern. We've raised it as a concern for quite some period of time that the best working alone plan is to not work alone.
CBC has asked Hydro for information surrounding the worker's death. Aspinall says he had worked in the past with that worker. He says he was a good person with a big smile. Aspinall says the union will be involved in any investigation into his death, and there will be support for his family. One man is dead and 2 others are under arrest after a North End shooting. Police were called to a house in the 400 block of Redwood around 10:30 Wednesday night. They found a man with serious injuries. He later died in hospital. He has been identified as 32-year-old Colin Jesse Bernardin Hebert. Police have now charged 36-year-old Pierre Flett with second-degree murder, possession of prohibited or restricted firearms, and other charges. And 32-year-old Jared Jackson Bushy is also charged with second-degree murder. Police ask anyone who knows anything about what happened to get in touch. The shovels have dug in and the soil has been turned to develop Centerport South. The province and the city of Winnipeg are investing $74 million for Phase 1 of the wastewater and infrastructure work. Minister of Transportation Lisa Naylor says this will be key to developing the area for housing and business, creating hundreds of jobs.
This will open up 1,800 acres in Centerport South that will enable new trade-based development to occur, creating good jobs for Winnipeggers and support growing residential needs.
The city has also created a Centerport South development support team to help streamline the development process in the region. Federal Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is calling for Canada to match U.S. tariffs.
Common sense Conservatives are calling for the introduction of a 100% tariff on made-in-China EVs entering Canada. 2, a 50% tariff on semiconductors and solar cells. 3, a 25% tariff on steel and aluminum, graphite, and other critical minerals, EV batteries, battery parts, permanent magnets, and ship-to-shore cranes. And 4, the cancellation of taxpayer-funded rebates for Chinese-made vehicles.
Yesterday, steel and aluminum producers pressured Federal Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland to put tariffs on electric vehicles as well as Chinese-made commodities, but the federal government has so far only been consulting on a new EV tariff. The latest Canadian job numbers show employment was steady for the 3rd straight month. The data released by Statistics Canada show the economy shed 2,800 jobs in July, and unemployment remained unchanged at 6.4%. Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump have their first presidential debate on September 10th. It's the same debate as initially scheduled when Joe Biden was still in the race. And it could be the first of several between Harris and Trump. The CBC's Ashley Burke has details from Washington.
This suggests Donald Trump knows his campaign is in trouble, and that he's hoping this will turn things around for him like it did when he debated Joe Biden. That debate was disastrous for Biden and ultimately led to him calling his bid for re-election quits. Now Trump's facing Kamala Harris, whose campaign is energized and seeing momentum with the new Ipsos poll suggesting she's a slight lead over Trump. He's now backing down from his demand that he would only debate Harris on Fox News and instead is proposing 3 televised debates against her.
She's barely competent and she can't do an interview. But I look forward to the debates because I think we have to set the record straight.
Harris has publicly agreed to one of those debates so far.
I am looking forward to debating Donald Trump, and we have a date of September 10th. I hear he's finally committed to it.
Harris's performances at debates is mixed. Some have gone well and others have not. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Washington.
And Skylar Park is getting used to being called an Olympic medalist. The Taekwondo athlete from Winnipeg won bronze yesterday in the women's 57-kilogram division. The 25-year-old credits her family, including her father, Jay, who is also her coach, and her brothers, Braven and Taiku, who are also elite Taekwondo competitors. Speaking today with CBC's Heather Hiscox, Park says she hopes both her brothers will get to compete at the next Olympics.
I wish nothing but this and more for both of them. They've sacrificed so much to help me get to this point, and especially leading up to these games to help me prepare, and forever grateful for them, and I hope the goal is for LA, all of us to be there.
Park says a day after her medal-winning performance, she's tired, but she's still feeling joy and excitement. In Winnipeg today, we are seeing mainly sunny conditions today with only a few clouds, a high of 20. Brandon, a mix of sun and cloud, a high of 20 as well. Dauphin, a high of 20 with partly cloudy skies. Flin Flon, a high of 23 with a mix of sun and cloud. Thompson, a mix of sun and cloud, a high of 25. And in Churchill, mainly sunny with a high of 24. Right now, you are listening to CBC Radio 1.
Good afternoon and welcome to Radio Noon. I'm Laurie Hoog-Stratton, filling in for Janet Stewart. It's a lovely Friday out there. Not too hot, not too cold. A little warmer than some indoor places where there's a lot of air conditioning going on. Coming up on the show today, we are talking about travel on Radio Noon. On the call-in, have you been on a plane, train, or automobile trip lately? We want to know, how was it and where did you go? Or are you still deciding which trip to take? Luckily for all of us, Max Johnson, who you may know as Max Globetrotter, will be in to answer all our questions and hear our stories. Also, we're going to talk a bit about the Perseid showers, but coming up first on Radio Noon, bringing 4 Indigenous languages together in Brandon. A small village of 4 teepees has popped up at Brandon's Eagle Healing Lodge. It's the organization's first ever language camp, and each teepee hosts an Indigenous language: Dakota, Cree, Anishinaabe, and Michif. CBC's Chelsea Kemp spoke with its program coordinator, Denise Sinclair, about what it's been like so far.
Doing this?
Pretty surreal.
I always wanted to go do this with them.
So what she's doing is pagoy minike. She's crushing choke cherries.
Because we were smoking the meat and making these necklaces, we were using the language too. So I'm learning as I go.
Right now we're holding the very first 4 Sacred Sounds language camp. Our languages are the land, are the earth, and that we receive those teachings from the land. So Dakota, Cree, Anishinaabe, and Michif. It's important that everything that we're doing here is specifically land-based. In order for us to feel like we know ourselves and we know our identity, but also that we know our culture.
I definitely feel a sense of importance here because everyone that comes here has a role, whether it's a student or a beginner or an instructor. It's really nice to meet all the different people from all the different languages. There's people that are reclaiming their languages later in life. There's little kids growing up hearing their language.
I consider myself a learner as well because I have other women have other words that I don't know. I'm getting strength from being around the other speakers. That to keep going. Hopefully by next year it'll be like a full immersion. People talking the language right through, no English.
Now that I know how to do it, I'll be able to go home and do it with my kids.
Who's doing this? I always wanted to go do this with them.
So what she's doing is pagoy minike. She's crushing choke cherries.
Because we were smoking the meat and making these necklaces, we were using the language too. So I'm learning as I go.
Right now we're holding the very first Four Sacred Sounds language camp. Our languages are the land, are the earth, and that we receive those teachings from the land. So Dakota, Cree, Anishinaabe, and Michif. It's important that everything that we're doing here is specifically land-based. In order for us to feel like we know ourselves and we know our identity, but also that we know our culture.
I definitely feel a sense of importance here because everyone that comes here has a role, whether it's a student or a beginner or an instructor. It's really nice to meet all the different people from all the different languages. There's people that are reclaiming their languages later in life. There's little kids growing up hearing their language.
I consider myself a learner as well because I have other women have other words that I don't know. I'm getting strength from being around the other speakers. That to keep going. Hopefully by next year it'll be like a full immersion. People talking the language right through, no English.
Now that I know how to do it, I'll be able to go home and do it with my kids.
What do you want to see happen next? What is going to help keep language going?
Prayer, consistency, the continuous thought to keep learning and hold it there in your priority. I think that sometimes our days can get really busy and it's hard to remember that, but starting your day with prayer and, like Denise said, putting tobacco down and asking for a clear mind, strong heart to retain the information that you receive from your elders or in your learning day to day. I think that's really important. Yeah.
That's Leslie Hotain, a cultural support worker with the Eagle Healing Lodge in Brandon. We also heard from its program coordinator, Denise Sinclair, and you can read more about this story on our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All over Turtle Island, host Rosanna Deerchild welcomes you to Unreserved.
Indigenous peoples are retelling history through an Indigenous lens.
Unreserved, celebrating 10 years, looking back at how far we've come, and looking forward to the journey ahead.
How do we keep the story going?
Unreserved with Rosanna Deerchild. Now at a new time, Sunday afternoon at 2:30 in Newfoundland, 3 Pacific, 4 Mountain, and on demand on CBC Listen.
You're listening to Radio Noon. It's 13 minutes after 12 o'clock. I'm Laurie Hoogstraten, filling in for Janet. Coming up in the call-in portion of the show after the 12:30 news, we're going to welcome Max Johnson into the studio and talk about all things travel. What trips you've been taking, what trips you're hoping to take. Did you get a flight canceled on you? Did you get any money back for it? We want to talk about travel tips and destinations all those things. It'd be wonderful to have Max right in studio with us, and he's a wonderful storyteller himself, as I'm sure you all know, being CBC listeners. Taking a look at the forecast in the Winnipeg region, a high of 21 today. We'll see if we get there. It's 16 now. Down to 11 tonight, 24 on Saturday. Sunday looks nice, 26. Monday, 28. Tuesday, 27. And it looks like summer again, right through Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, all in the high 20s. That's what I like to see in August. And some temperatures for you around the province. I should tell you that Churchill is the hot spot at the moment, by the way, at 21 degrees. And in Brandon, it's 16. Churchill, as I said, 21. Dauphin, there's quite a few 16s. Dauphin, Gimli, The Paw, and Winnipeg are all 16. In Thompson, it's 18. And in Winnipeg, it's breezy. Winds out of the north, 20 gusting to 30. We're only at 16, but we might get up to 21. For stargazers and astronomy enthusiasts, some great nights are just around the corner. If the weather cooperates with clear, dark skies, you can witness one of the most dazzling meteor displays of the year. The Perseid meteor shower will peak on the nights of August 11th and 12th. Andrew Fazakis joined guest host Faith Fundal this morning on Information Radio. He's a science writer and educator known online as the Night Sky Guy.
I mean, it's just so perfect. People are on vacation this time of the year, warm weather, people heading out to the countryside, camping, fishing, just basically spending a lot of time, extended periods of time outside under the skies. And that's what you need to see this light show. And, the Perseids are also an amazing performer. They can produce upwards of 60 to 100 shooting stars per hour under ideal conditions. So this makes it one of the most prolific celestial events, too. And they're bright and fast. The shooting stars leave long, glowing trails. This makes them really easy to spot even for beginners under light-polluted city suburbs. And it's just really reliable, very dependable, like clockwork every mid-August. And finally, I think the fact that you don't need any special equipment, no binoculars, no telescopes, you just sit back and with your eyes you get to enjoy this celestial fireworks show. It's really accessible.
I mean, there are other meteor showers throughout the year, but what is it about the Perseid meteor shower that makes them so visible?
Yeah, I think it's partly due to the sheer number that you get to see, the high number per hour. The rates range from 60 to 100 shooting stars under dark skies, right? So if you're out in the dark countryside, imagine seeing one of these streaks of light every 30 seconds or every minute. This high frequency makes it really eye-catching. Even if you're in light-polluted conditions or it's less than ideal weather, you'll still see some of the show. They're also known for bright, fast-moving meteors, so that's very eye-catching too. They makes it easier to spot. They produce, Perseids are known to produce what are called fireballs. These are exceptionally bright meteors, and they are even visible from within city limits. And I think this year we're really lucky because the moon, which tends to wash out the show, is going to be out of the sky exactly during the peak hours between midnight and dawn. The moon is going to be heading below the horizon setting around midnight. So that leaves the perfect ideal conditions to seeing this light show.
And of course, the forecast for Sunday night and Saturday night, clear conditions with lows of 11 and 12 degrees. I mean, when you have conditions like that, what kind of expectations would you have people think about and potentially see?
Yeah, I mean, it's, the idea of being able to see so many shooting stars is incredible. And if you can get out of the city, my number one tip would be to leave the city if possible, get out into less light-polluted areas where there are no direct lights. Even if you're stuck within the city limit, turn off porch lights, get your neighbors to turn off lights if you're in your backyard.
Does it make a big difference?
It does. Light pollution really cuts down on the amount of these meteors you see because some of them are going to be faint. They're not going to be all super bright. And if you're out in the countryside, even the fainter ones are quite eye-catching. So that light pollution really does make a difference. Now, with that said, even if you are stuck within town, and if you're in your backyard, the most important thing is not to have lights shining in your face. You want your eyes to adapt to darkness. It takes about 20, 30 minutes for that to happen. It's really important. I can't stress that enough because once you're adapted, you get to see those fainter shooting stars. Even under light pollution, you'll see a big difference. So that means, of course, turning off your smartphones too, eh? So that is notorious for blinding us, right? So that you want to try to make sure you don't watch. Just turn that off and get comfortable. A lot of people don't think about this, but you're going to get a crank in your neck by staring up at the sky for like a half hour, an hour. And then it's not fun. It really doesn't. It becomes tiresome. So you want to relax. So get a reclining lawn chair, a hammock, a blanket to lie down on. Stay hydrated, energized with snacks and drinks, and bring family and friends and make it a real party atmosphere. And it makes such a difference.
Andrew Fazekas is a science writer and author of Stargazer's Atlas, the ultimate guide to the night sky. He joined Faith Fundal this morning on Information Radio.
Seen a shooting star tonight, and I thought of you. You're trying to break into another world, a world I never knew. I always kind of wondered if you ever made it through. Seen a shooting star tonight, and I thought of you. Seen a shooting star tonight, and I thought of me. If I was still the same, if I ever became what you wanted me to be. Did I miss the mark, overstep the line that only you could see? Seen a shooting star tonight, and I thought of me. Listen to the engine, listen to the bell, as the last fire truck from hell goes rolling by. Our good people, I pray. It's the last temptation, the last account, last time you might hear the sermon on the mount. Last radio's playing. Seen a shooting star tonight slip away. Tomorrow will be another day. Guess it's too late to say the things to you that you needed to hear me say. Seen a shooting star tonight slip away.
Bob Dylan and Shooting Star.
Angeline Tadaweo hosts The Block.
Afrobeats to jazz, hip-hop to R&B, calypso, Kez the Dan, Michelle Montano, Bob Marley, Bounty Killer. So we really give all these artists a chance to shine, and the key is in the programming, in making it make sense, and making sure that the music is fluid, a fluid experience.
The Block with Angeline Tadaweo. Available now on CBC Listen. Your neighborhood, your community, your country, your world, your news. Your news that matters. News that belongs to you. Your World Tonight. Every night, 7 days a week on CBC Radio 1. On demand on the CBC Listen app and everywhere you get your podcasts.
And you're listening to Radio Noon. It's just coming up to 24 minutes after 12 o'clock. And after the 12:30 news, we want to hear from you at 204-780-0893 about your travel plans or your travel disasters. Did you have some flights canceled on you? Did you get some compensation? Did you find a secret gem of travel somewhere? Maybe you went for a few days at the Paris Olympics and now you're back and you want to tell us about it. We want to hear from you, and you will be hearing from Max Johnson, who is a travel consultant and well known to CBC listeners. We used to call him Max Globetrotter, and he certainly fits that bill. He's been everywhere, seen everything, and we can hear about where he's been and hear what his opinion is on things like how are the airlines doing these days. And if you have any questions that you want to ask him or any comments about your travel, trains, planes, and automobiles, do let us know. But we're just coming up to 25 past, so it's time for your Olympic update in just 1 second or two.
Welcome to your Olympic Games report. I'm Amber Giro. Canada has added another bronze to its medal haul thanks to the women's 500-meter double sprint canoe.
The defending silver medalists taking their run in Canada. As we head down to the finish line, it's China with the lead. Vincent and Mackenzie looks like bronze.
It was indeed a bronze for Canada's Katie Vincent and Sloane Mackenzie, the pair rowing their way to the podium in the women's 500-meter double sprint canoe. China took gold while Ukraine claimed silver. This is the second time Katie Vincent has won bronze in the event. She and her teammate finished third in the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo. Team Canada is going for gold in women's beach volleyball today. It's the first time any Canadian team has made it this far. Partners Melissa Humana Paredes and Brandy Wilkerson go up against top-ranked Brazil. That match gets underway at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time. The CBC's Mandy Sham has more.
We made history for Canada. We're bringing back a medal for Canada. We know the one that we want.
Melissa Humana Paredes says they have yet to show off their best game, but they're about to do exactly that. The Canadian defender, alongside blocker Brandy Wilkerson, will lay it all out on the sand today as they face Brazil in what's sure to be a gripping final showdown.
Okay, over! And now the Swiss have match point.
There were moments in that unrelenting semifinal against Switzerland yesterday when it appeared their Olympic dream might be cut short. But the Canadians refused to cave into the pressure.
There was no way that we were going to let that game finish without putting up a fight, and we know we had more in us, and we just stuck with it.
This has been quite an unexpected journey for the team. Wilkerson and Humana Paredes fared poorly in the group stage, but they bounced back in the knockout stages, going on to beat the second-ranked Americans, and one by one, Spain and Switzerland fell to the Canadians.
I describe it sometimes like a tug-of-war.
CBC play-by-play commentator and beach volleyball Olympic medalist Mark Hees says the sport is often about weathering the storm and seizing opportunities the moment they come, something Wilkerson and Humana Paredes have done well in these past games.
It's just getting the right mindset, stay competitive, and really focus on what they've done on the court to get this far, which is really all about their tough serves. They've pressured teams with their serve and then set up their block defense. It's one of the best defensive teams in the world.
Close friends, good teammates, and hopefully gold medalists for Canada. Mandy Sham, CBC Sports.
There is a lot of action today in the field of athletics. Men and women will be running in relays, and Canada could be on deck to win a medal in shot put. The CBC's Khalil Hassan Ali sets it all up for us.
Brooklyn, Nova Scotia, Sarah Mitten looks to continue the country's winning ways on the field in Paris. She made easy work of her qualification in the women's shot put yesterday.
First attempt for Sarah Mitten in qualifying, and that's an easy qualification. You can see well past that qualifying mark. They'll measure it, and she is one and done. 19.77 meters on her first throw to qualify for the final.
With that throw, the 2023 world champion separated herself from the competition by nearly half a meter. On the track, both the men's and women's 4x100 meter relay teams snuck into the final. Both will run in the outside lane. Canada's women raced in less than 5 minutes. In yesterday's semi-final, Gatineau, Quebec's Audrey Leduc was able to overtake a couple of runners in the final leg to get Canada into today's race. They'll need another strong race from the national record holder in the 100. After failed qualifications and disqualifications on the individual side, the men's relay team is looking for redemption. The team was in first going into the final exchange yesterday, but a sloppy exchange has them in lane 9 today. This exact relay team captured silver in this event in Tokyo. Khalil Hassan Ali, CBC Sports.
As we approach the end of the Olympic Games, we are also marking the start of an Olympic first. Breakdancing is making its debut at Paris 2024.
She's super well-rounded, amazing footwork, incredible power, freeze transitions. Look at the pacing.
Oh,
stop playing.
Once again, the sport has been added to the Olympic roster for the first time. Dancers are competing in one-on-one freestyle challenges, being judged on technique, variety, execution, and originality. And that is your CBC.
This is CBC News. At 12:30, we're at 18 degrees with partly cloudy skies over downtown Winnipeg. Good afternoon. I'm Matt Humphrey. Members of the Union for Manitoba hydro workers are in mourning after one of their own died on the job this week. The worker was responding to a power outage in the Inner Lake when he died. Michael Espinel is the business manager of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 2034. He knew the man who died.
I worked with the individual in the past, earlier in my career, and just was a fabulous individual. I remember, big smile.
Espinel says the employee was working alone when he died, and that has long been a concern for the union, which will be involved in the investigation and supporting the grieving family. Hydro confirms the man was working on his own, which it says is standard practice when investigating outages. Ukraine says at least 14 people have been killed and 44 injured in a Russian missile strike on a supermarket in the Donetsk region. It comes as Moscow continues efforts to repel an incursion by Ukrainian forces into Russian territory. Julia Chapman has more.
Emergency services arrive at a burning supermarket in Kostiantynivka. They're still looking for people thought to be trapped under the rubble. President Volodymyr Zelensky has vowed that Russia will be held accountable. Hours earlier, Ukraine carried out a drone and missile assault against Russia, including on a military airfield. Kyiv says it destroyed a warehouse storing bombs. Ukrainian troops are also engaged in a secretive ground incursion in the Russian region of Kursk. President Vladimir Putin met his Security Council on Friday to discuss combating what he called terrorism. Moscow has sent reinforcements to Kursk as it says it's working to push back Ukrainian forces. Julia Chapman, CBC News, London.
And it's been a day since Skylar Park won a medal at the Paris Olympics. The Taekwondo athlete from Winnipeg took bronze in the women's 57-kilogram division yesterday. Today, she celebrated with fans at Champions Park, right at the foot of the Eiffel Tower. She spoke with CBC's Heather Hiscox moments later.
I'm tired, but I think the excitement and the joy and the gratitude is just keeping me going, and the adrenaline's still flowing, so I'm super excited. I think it's finally sinking in that I'm an Olympic medalist, and it feels good.
The Winnipegger gives credit to her family, which she calls Team Park. Her dad, Jay, is also her coach, and she trains with her two brothers, who are themselves elite Taekwondo athletes. And Park hopes both brothers will compete with her at the next Olympics in Los Angeles. You can hear more from Skylar Park this afternoon on Up to Speed. And that's your CBC News from Winnipeg.
Thanks very much, Matt.
Back soon.
That's Matt Humphreys in the newsroom. You're listening to Radio Noon.
I'm tired.
Lori Hoog-Stratton, filling in for Janet Stewart this week. And you're at 89.3 FM, 990 AM. And Riley Lachuk has joined us in studio to tell us about the fairly glorious weather out there.
Is it nice out there?
I'm tired.
It's very nice. Whoa, I'm tired too. The weather is salubrious.
Okay.
I would say.
18 degrees in Winnipeg right now is where we're at the moment. 18s in both Brandon and Dauphin at the moment as well. Thompson, 22. Tuduli Lake and Churchill both at 24. Some warmth to be had in parts of northern Manitoba. Satellite and radar, not a lot to see at the moment. A little bit of sort of thin, high-level cloud across the Red River Valley. A little bit more cloud, a few showers even potentially into sort of that Swan River, the Paw area, and a bit more of a steadier rain still in northwestern Ontario. This is all part of an area of low pressure that's kind of stuck over Lake Superior at the moment, prompting special weather statements into parts of southern Ontario and into parts of eastern Ontario, because that is combining with what was Tropical Storm Debbie off into Ontario and Quebec. So for us in Manitoba, not much of an impact. We're looking at mainly sunny skies as we get through the rest of the day today. Into the day on Saturday, mainly sunny skies as well. A little bit of cloud cover kind of hanging around. But other than that, we're looking at a return to more seasonal conditions, I'll call it, as we get through Saturday into Sunday, looking mainly sunny as well. 19s for both Winnipeg and Brandon is what I've got for at least the next couple of hours here. Forecast high in Winnipeg, 21 through the afternoon today, 20 in Swan River, 24 in Thompson and Lynn Lake through the afternoon today. So sort of high teens, low 20s for the south, a bit warmer into the north, and then, as mentioned, a bit of a return to more seasonal conditions into the weekend. 24 for Saturday, 26 for Sunday, 28 for Monday, and a good chance of showers once again as we head into Wednesday with a high of 28 degrees. So back to, I like to call it regularly scheduled summer by the time we get to the end of the weekend, but still a couple more days yet of maybe some below seasonal temps.
Well, it's been a change.
Yeah.
And we'll appreciate it more when it comes back.
People who do not like the humidity and the high heat definitely appreciating the last couple days, I think.
Yeah. Well, something that's going to be a bit cool with the Perseid meteor showers. Right. We used to have to be careful about the dew point. You get soaked lime on the grass kind of thing. But it'll be chilly, but lots of falling stars.
Exactly.
Yeah, on Sunday and Monday, I think. Yeah, thanks very much, Riley.
No problem.
That's weather specialist Riley Lachuk, and you can hear him again this afternoon on Up to Speed. It's just coming up to 24 minutes before 1 o'clock. And this is the phone-in portion of the show. So phone in, please, 204-780-0893. I know you'll want to, because we're talking travel. Summer is getaway season. People are taking trips both near and far. But you know what they say about the best laid plans. So we want to know, how has travel worked out for you this summer? What's your opinion of how travel is feeling these days? Has it been plain sailing, or have you had canceled flights? How are the crowds where you went? And what's been a pleasant surprise? Or maybe you're looking for some suggestions or advice. Travel can be tricky, and so we are delighted to have travel consultant Max Johnson in studio today, a name well known to CBC listeners. So delays, getting compensation, and just plain getting there can be tricky. And Max might have some tips to offer on that if you have some questions you'd like to ask. And we'd also like you to share your stories at 204-780-0893. Max has spent, about the past 50 years traveling around the world, seeking new and exciting experiences for vacationers everywhere, and maybe he'll tell us about some of that. He's with TTJ Tourism, and his special interest is, I would say, product development and niche destinations. Hi, Max.
That sounds good.
That sounds good, doesn't it? Fancy, really. Yeah. I've read up on you over the years. I know these things. It's nice to have you in the studio. I think over the years I've talked to you from the South Seas, from Africa, from Europe, on board ship. It's so calm to have you just in the studio like this.
Well, it makes a pleasant change.
Yes, it does. So we want people to call in and talk to us and talk to Max at 204-770-3085. Oh, no, ignore that number. That's my number. 204-780-0893. Try that. That's a better number to call. So if you want to text us as well, you can do that. 204-588-7355. But don't be shy. Give us a call. So, Max, I'm going to start off with, what is the best trip you've taken recently? I'm going to say recently because you go way back with the trip. So what's the best one you've taken recently?
It's really difficult. When people say, what's the best trip you've been on? There are so many different motivating factors. Basically, I've enjoyed them all. So trying to find a best one is different. I was in South America last week and really enjoyed getting to new places. I love the experience of thinking about a destination, and then when you get there, finding out whether you're right or whether you are completely and utterly wrong. And last week I ended up in Asuncion in Paraguay for no other reason than the fact that I hadn't been there before. And it was just wonderful. Bizarre.
What's it like?
Well, I'd been in Buenos Aires for a few days before. Buenos Aires is one of the most vibrant cities on the face of the planet. And flying up to Asuncion, I had an idea that it wouldn't be dissimilar, but it was completely different. In the 4 days I was there, for example, I think I saw about 7 other tourists. And it's a place that is functional, it's old, it has a very, very odd history. It's had one wave after another of migrants. In Manitoba, of course, we know about the Mennonite connection, which is incredibly strong. There are probably 70 to 100,000 Mennonites who live in various colonies in Paraguay. What I hadn't realized is that there had been waves of Australian utopians who'd gone there. Australian utopians. Waves of Japanese and Koreans. And over the years, these various groups had gone to Paraguay simply because there was never really an efficient government in Paraguay. And they just said, come on down. It's a large country. It's empty. And if you want to go and live in the desert, good on you. So one wave after another, and has led to just a simply rather unusual atmosphere. And so unusual, I'm going to go back, I think, in February on holiday, rent a car and go and explore a bit more.
It sounds fantastic. And we have Cheryl on the line, and I think you've been stoking the flames for people to share their stories. Hi, Cheryl. Oh, are you there, Cheryl? Oh, wait, I think I have to press the button myself. Good heavens. Hello, Cheryl. Hello.
Hello.
Hello, I pressed the button. Yay.
This is Cheryl.
Yeah, so have you been traveling?
Well, I'm not much of a traveler. I did decide to go on a winter holiday, visit some friends in Texas.
Sorry?
It was supposed to be...
In Texas, did you say? Were you sort of cutting in and out?
Yes, I'm sorry. It's
No,
my
go ahead.
phone.
Uh-oh.
Arrived Monday afternoon, and I got there Thursday.
Oh, what happened?
Well, the first morning, they oversold my flight. So I didn't have any definite plans, so I gave up my seat. The next morning, the flight was canceled. Spent another night in the airport. The next morning, the flight was delayed long enough that I missed my connection in Minneapolis.
Oh,
so
no.
spent the night in Minneapolis airport, and finally got to Texas Thursday afternoon.
Oh, dear. So will you get any compensation or anything, you suppose, or how does that work?
Yes, I was very, very well compensated. They paid for my food, meals, both days, hotel rooms. So I have nothing to complain about as far as how I was treated. But for somebody that's not a great travel fan, it was an interesting trip.
And it took you 3 days longer to get there. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Bit of a drawback. Yes. Yep. Well, very interesting to hear that, Cheryl. I'm glad that you did get some compensation, and maybe that'll inspire some of our listeners to compare some stories or burn with outrage if nothing, the same thing didn't happen to them. Thanks very much for calling us. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
That was Cheryl with a story that she told with great aplomb, considering it took her 3 days to get to her destination. So, Max, are you hearing a lot of stories like that, or have you had something like that happen in terms of like just flat out cancellations, or how's that looking these days? More of that?
I think there's a lot more about it, a lot more of it going on. I think we hear more about it because of social media, because it's considerably easier to get your story out. And there are so many different issues, and it's an incredibly complex problem. But at the root of it, I think, is at the root of our problems, the customers' problems, is the fact that in Canada, any consumer protection that we have, which compared to Europe is not much in anything, tends to be provincial, with the sole exception of transportation, which is a federal issue. So because there is no federal consumer lobbying body in the same way that we have them provincially, yet the airlines maintain a dozen full-time lobbyists in Parliament, the cards are stacked against us.
Yeah.
So we have a situation that our representatives, who are federal MPs, appoint a Canadian Transportation Agency. The CTA have established a series of rules called the Airline Passenger Protection Regulations. These detail absolutely exactly the type of compensation that people should get in the event of various problems. The airlines, unfortunately, are extremely economical with the truth when it comes to the reasons for delays. They, in many ways, force problems on themselves. For example, if you book a flight from Winnipeg to New York or Winnipeg to London, and you have to connect in Toronto, airlines force you into what are called married segments, which means you can't choose which Winnipeg-Toronto flight you book before the flight to London. Airlines know that passengers book the fastest route. So they book improbable connections, and they force you into, for example, a 1 hour and 10-minute connection from a domestic to an international flight. And you're really set up to fail in an airport like Toronto, where delays of 20 minutes are very common. So is that their fault that you miss? They say, well, it was weather. And you say, well, I would have booked a 3-hour connection if I could have done, but you don't allow me to do it. So the airlines really are their own worst enemies in these. But the problem is when it comes to a fight, and it's one of us versus Air Canada or WestJet, you know who's going to win at the beginning.
I suppose. And if you've had an experience like that, or maybe the opposite, let us pray, but it seems unlikely, give us a call at 204-780-0893, or you can text us at 204-588-7355. It's interesting. I had one of those. I was connecting internationally to domestic, and I went, I made the connection and so on. When I got there, they said, oh, no, you can't get on this flight. And I'm like, well, why? Well, because you won't be able to make the connection. I said, but I'm here. And they're like, too bad. And it's extraordinary. It was crazy. We've got people giving us a call, and we'd like you to as well. Give us a call, 204-780-0893. We have Glenda on the line, I believe. I guess we don't have Glenda on the line after all. It's funny how those things are kind of set up. But I've also had some good experiences too. And when we're talking about the airlines, I also wanted to ask you about, there seems to be this trend of charging, or threatening at least, to either have to charge for absolutely every little thing, charging for carry-on, those kinds of things. Is this a new model that they're adopting, and what are people saying about it?
I don't think it's necessarily a new model. It's a model that really started a couple of decades ago with the Ryanairs of the world and the ultra-low-cost carriers. What is new is that what they call legacy carriers, the big, proper, grown-up airlines, have decided to pretend they're big and proper and grown up, but charge people as if they are one of the ultra low-cost carriers. And they are just looking for absolutely any way to make another dollar or pound or yen.
And what are prices like, would you say, for just travel in general now? Are they becoming exorbitant? Are there deals to be had? How's that working?
It's really hard to say. Again, there are plenty of deals to be had, but planning in advance is the key to it. If you book well ahead, and you can't book too far ahead, because the airlines play a game that is fundamentally probability. And they say, what is the probability of me selling this seat for that flight at this price. And every day it's slightly different. They sold more than they thought they were going to. They've sold less than they thought they were going to. But usually the best deals are to be had about 6 months out.
6 months, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Not a year, because a year they're at the height of their optimism and they're going to sell every seat at the full price.
Yeah.
But by 6 months they know, 3 months out. Obviously Christmas is different because it's the same date every year.
Yes.
And we all know that. And waiting for a Christmas deal is not good. And similarly, school holidays, they know exactly when schools are going to break up.
Yeah. Now, I asked you a little earlier about the best trip you've taken recently, and we want to hear from you out there as well. What's the best trip or worst trip you've been taking? 204-780-0893. So, Max, I want to ask you, what is the worst trip you've ever taken, would you say? But again, I guess it depends on what you consider the bad part.
I really can't. I can only remember two rather irritating ones. I was in Romania in the 80s when Ceausescu was at his height of power, and it was simply the most dour place that I've ever been in my life. It was uncomfortable. The idea that people were watching you all the time, which they may or may not have been, was really a little bit unpleasant. So that was one. And the second was a trip that coming back from the South Pacific, where I think 3 days in a row the plane went mechanical and stuck in Fiji and then stuck in Auckland and it just seemed like we were never going to get anywhere. But here we are. We got home in the end.
Here we are. We've got people calling in from 204-780-0893. Cameron, what have your travel adventures been?
Well, I haven't had many adventures, but my wife and my daughters have taken advantage of those ultra low-cost fares 3 times this summer. And as long as they can manage their baggage, and my other daughter had gone to Europe and basically backpacked with a carry-on the whole time. So it's given them the opportunity to get out and see things while using those great low fares, as long as you can just manage the baggage requirements.
Well, traveling light, I think that's a skill that that people learn the more they travel, and as long as you don't mind wearing the same thing every single day, it's good.
Exactly, and so it's the ultra low cost has been great for them.
Yeah, and nothing got canceled. They made it to their destinations.
No, I had a cancellation or a massive delay where I spent several hours, but they also notified me, like having the notifications on your phone,
right,
and telling you not to show up at the airport.
Yeah,
that worked for me as well.
Well, that's good. Good to hear. Yeah, thanks very much.
It's been a pleasant summer.
Oh, that's great, Cameron. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, okay. Thanks a lot for calling. Let's hear from Linda. Hi, Linda. Hello, Linda. Hi.
Hi there.
So have you been on any great trips?
Yes, and as I told the person
Chloe,
setting up the calls,
yeah.
That the reason I called is primarily because one of my best trips ever is partly in Max Johnson is partly responsible for piquing my interest in the destination.
Oh,
so yes, quite some time ago he was doing a program on one of his best trips, and he mentioned Georgia and said it was one of the most beautiful places he had ever been, and he was talking about the wine, and I thought, Georgia, that sounds interesting. And so anyway, last fall I did go to Georgia, and spectacular, loved it.
Oh.
one of my absolute best trips, so I want to thank him for that.
Well, that's great to hear. Yeah. It is a fantastic country.
Oh, it's lovely. And you know what? I went a white wine drinker, and I came home a Safravi lover. so it was quite wonderful. And thank you for instigating my interest in the location.
Oh, it's great to hear.
Thanks for calling, Linda.
Okay. Bye-bye.
And if you have something to share, give us a call at 204-780-0893. Hello, Jerry. We have Jerry on the line. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Very well. How are you?
Good.
How's flights been for you?
Well, I've actually had 4 negative experiences in the last month and a half, including one as early as yesterday morning. So it kind of goes to the topic that you were talking about. I'll start with yesterday. One of our staff, I booked a flight for her, and she was supposed to leave Winnipeg flying back to Calgary. Now, I understand WestJet had some issues with damaged planes due to hail. However, her flight was canceled in the morning at 8 a.m., but there was no rebooking. And we weren't able to get through to anybody at WestJet on the phone. Their lines were tied up. We ended up having to go to the airport, and almost 2 hours at a desk to finally get her booked on another flight and, hotel and meal vouchers. And it ends up she had to stay here in Winnipeg for an extra day and a half just to get home.
Wow.
And that was a short, simple flight to Calgary.
Gee.
My wife and I were traveling to Europe last month, and on our flight out, and this was similar to what you were just discussing, the married flights where you can't book and change the amount of time between the flights.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to leave to head to Europe, and our flight out of Winnipeg was delayed by 30 minutes, and we only had an hour and 10-minute connection in Toronto. So we land in Toronto, and even before we got off the plane thinking we were going to run to the next flight, we got text messages saying that we'd already been bumped.
Yep.
We were bumped a day into the future, and so we did get hotel and food vouchers, but we've now lost the first day of our trip in London, and we're staying in Toronto.
Gee.
On the way home from Europe, the exact same thing happens where we get delayed coming from London back to Montreal.
Yeah.
We land in Montreal, and the gate for our flight home was still open, but our bags weren't on the flight, so they wouldn't let us get on. And so, again, they had to put us up overnight. Then we had to fly Montreal, Toronto home, a day and a half on the end of the flight as well.
Oh, boy. That's terrible. Wow.
Yeah. And I have to share the last one was coming back from Vegas, and we happened to fly Flair Airlines. Now, Flair only has a couple of flights a week, and coming home from Vegas, the flight was canceled, and we're standing at the counter, and all of a sudden they said, okay, well, this was Saturday morning, and they said, okay, we've got you booked on the next flight. Well, that was Wednesday.
Oh,
and because it started off as being mechanical, but then there was high winds, apparently, so it turned into a weather incident, so they weren't on the hook for covering any charges. So
wow.
We had to stay in Vegas for an extra 4 days.
Oh,
now,
gee.
we were pretty lucky, and I could work remotely.
Yeah.
But there was an entire plane load of people, and some of them ended up being on the next flight, which was Saturday.
Oh, boy. Well, these are dreadful tales. And, we have one more. We have Brenda on the line, and we just want to try and grab her for 1 second. Mac, did you want to call?
Yeah, I was just going to ask Cameron whether you got the compensation for the European trip.
So I did manage to get some compensation through our credit card.
No, but the airlines...
Nothing from the airlines.
Because they certainly owe you at least $1,000 each for going over, and the European regulations tell €600 or the equivalent for coming back.
Aha.
Right.
Look into that one, Jerry.
Absolutely, I will.
Thanks very much
Thank
for
you.
calling. All right, bye-bye. And we're just going to try and squeeze in Brenda. Hello, Brenda.
Hi.
Hi. We just got like 30 seconds. Can you boil it down? How's your flying experience been?
I've had Canadian flight for WestJet to San Diego booked. WestJet canceled or postponed our flight, and then ultimately canceled it for we were supposed to leave Saturday morning and Sunday morning at 3:50 a.m. They sent me an email saying our connecting flight was canceled.
Oh, no.
So we had to drive down to the States. We drove down to Fargo, managed to get 4 tickets to San Diego, and my son got to enjoy his birthday at Legoland.
Oh, isn't that great? A story with a happy ending. Thank you very much, Brenda, for being speedy with that, and also for telling us a happy ending story.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. Thank you to everyone who gave us a call. And thank you especially to you, Max, for joining us in the studio today.
It's a pleasure.
Well, lots of exciting information and hearing of tales. We'll have to get you back soon. People have a lot to say on this subject. So thanks very much. And I'll just say, travel consultant Max Johnson is with TTJ Tourism. And he was with us in the studio today. And we're just sort of winding things up here on Radio Noon. It's Friday. People are looking forward to the weekend. There's going to be that Perseid shower on Sunday and Monday. So get out of the city and line your back on the weekend. And I'll be talking to you again soon. It's been a pleasure spending the week with you. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.